Better Listen Podcast, euer Sprachrohr für elektronische Tanzmusik und Berliner Nachtleben. Was ihr gern hört, zu was ihr gern tanzt, was euch bewegt. Hello and welcome to episode number 15 of the Better Listen podcast. My name is Liz and I will be your host again. This year I will only be interviewing women, so be my guest today when I speak to DJ and producer from Sweden, Robine. She's had a deep relationship with music since being in her mother's womb, working at Café Opera in Stockholm. Every 5 years, Robine found herself moving to a different city, and it was a special encounter at ADE that let her move to Berlin. With a background in tech and working at Spotify, she eventually found her way to producing music. Fast forward to today, she has produced Variety and and is a regular act at Berlin clubs such as Kater, Ritter Butzke and Sisyphos. She's also part of the collectives Variety and Beschäftigungstherapie. Tune in to this episode to find out how challenging and at the same time rewarding it is to live out your creativity and to find your own sound, and what Robine would recommend to every female who wants to start producing. Let's go! Hello, Robine. Thank you so much for having me.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
Very good.
It's International Women's Day today,
Yes.
and we're kicking off this new year at Better Listen podcast with just 1 year straight of interviewing women. So you're the first woman of this year, just fitting for
Awesome.
International Women's Day. And yeah, let's just jump right into you. How did it all start with you and what connects you with music to begin with?
I guess that it all started, music has always been a big part of my life. I remember being young, learning to play the piano, which I guess that's is a very good base to get into music. And before that, I don't remember it, but I guess it was a big influence when I was in the stomach of my mother when she was working in a club. I mean, it's always been a part of my life, and before that, it was even part of her life during the disco era. And I guess that some of the club rhythms went through.
So she was working while she was pregnant with you.
Yes, yeah. She was standing at the door at Café Opera, which is a kind of like the Studio 54 of Stockholm club scene back in the days. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's still there. It's still going strong. But yeah, she was part of that scene, and it's always been in the back of my head. That's my mother started there, and I've always enjoyed going out very much myself.
Yeah.
Once I myself started as a DJ, I always enjoyed making people happy, on the dance floor. Mm-hmm. It's always been a big passion of mine to connect with the people on the dance floor. And the next thing to do naturally after DJing myself was to start producing my own music and try to tell my own stories.
Were you already working you worked at Spotify before, you told me. So were you already working at Spotify, and was that like influencing you? Did you already DJ there, or?
I started DJing before I started at Spotify. I had already been DJing for maybe 3-4 years before then.
Ah, okay. How old were you then when you started?
That is a question. Let's say it's been 8 years since I worked at Spotify. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was in my 30s, early 30s when I started there.
Yeah.
Being able to also combine my background in IT and being working with technology and telecom in the beginning, and then moving into Spotify where I could like incorporate both. It was really cool. I was also taking care of their music studio and being like the administrator for that, so I could like combine my two interests, and that's also a lot of people that has a lot of music interest there. So
of course,
it's a very creative environment for sure.
Yeah.
But once I was working for Spotify, I actually joined a DJ competition in Stockholm, which is a very interesting setup since I don't really think that you can compete in music, but
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
And how can you measure who's doing a better DJ set than other person? So every time, because there was like different parts of this, so every time I was going up there, I was like, but how are they gonna tell who's doing better than the other, and what am I doing here? Why am I competing in music? It's not supposed to be about competition.
Right.
But it was a fun experience, and I actually won it.
Wow.
So I guess I did well.
Yeah.
And they liked it. It was a fun experience, and from that I realized that okay, well, it would be I would actually like to move away from the corporate world and only focus on music instead.
So that really was where it kicked
Yes,
off for
yeah,
you, winning
yeah.
that competition in a way.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
getting acknowledged and recognized for what you
Yeah.
did really kicked off the career for you. That is super special. Maybe already here at this point we can give it already a listen, so that everybody who's listening right now can get a feeling for your music if they don't know you yet. And I would love for that, if this was your first release ever. You said this is a special one for you. It's called Operatic, and it was released at Ein Musica Records.
Yes, the sub-label of Ein Musica, so Ein 2 it's called, yes.
Ein 2. Let's have a listen right now.
Operatic was my first release actually, and it was pretty special because it was during pandemic. I had realized, okay, well, I need to find something else to do now. I can't doing what I came here to Berlin to do, which was actually to play in the clubs. I started producing quite a lot earlier, but I was always like trying to figure out my sound, and I couldn't really get there. And I think during the pandemic, or in the start, when it was a big lockdown here in Berlin, it gave me the opportunity to actually sit down and, find myself and find my sound. And I think Operatic for me, actually, in the end, it was a pretty quick track to make. It just felt like all the pieces just came together. Mm-hmm. I guess it came into this flow, as you talk about. It just clicked everything finally, and I was like, oh, because I've been so frustrated for such a long time. I know I have something that I want to tell, but I just couldn't get it out. So finally, I felt like having this aha moment with Operatic. And it was such a nice feeling also that I got to know Samuel Musik, and that he actually picked it up for his label was also like a big milestone for me. And to have someone experienced as he is to actually give me the recognition that I could actually do it. I mean, we all have our ghosts and demons in our
insecurities.
Heads. Yes, exactly. The inner critic are saying, no, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So that was just still recently though, right? Like it was written in 2020 or?
Yeah, exactly. It was 2020. Yeah. No. And
Wow.
then during pandemic, I kind of had like a wave of releases coming out after each other. I had a few EPs as well. It was a good time musically for me, for sure.
Showing you the way that you can actually produce,
Yes.
and it is being recognized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting the recognition for it, and also finding my kind of
Sound.
my
Yeah,
sound and
sound
my
in a way.
little corner in this whole big musical
Right.
world.
Yeah. Were you always like, when you started DJing back in Sweden, was it always in the back of your head that you wanted to produce, or did this just come with time?
It came with time. I would definitely, if someone asks me, I'm a DJ and producer, but DJ at heart. So
Okay, yeah.
I definitely love this connection that you get with the people on the dance floor. That's what I live for. That's what I crave, or that's kind of like my
Calling.
yeah, my calling. Yeah, absolutely. And it gets me every time, you know, and when people come up and they have feedback, and they want to share this moment with you. So, but then it became like a natural transition into producing. I didn't know that it was there, but once I started producing, it was just like, oh my God, yes, of course.
Yeah.
This is, you know, I had so many like these I was going around like crying sometimes when I was walking. I was like, but finally I can like have this outlet, and I wasn't being as frustrated as I was before, because I learned, like I read some books about it. There's one which is called War of Art, which I got recommended from a really good producer, Dilby, a friend of mine. And I read that one, and it was a lot about this procrastination and how do you find your creativity, and this, like, you have to see it as you have to do it every day, and this change in like mindset, that if you sit down and you do it for every day, and it just
That there's
releases-
progress.
there's progress, and it's also, it affects your mood, actually, that you get to have this creative outlet every day. It's a good for your soul.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, it's of course also very different. You know what it's like when you say, you come from the corporate world, and you go to a job every day for a fixed amount of time, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, and you go to a place and there's something that is being asked from you, versus you're completely free and you get to be creative and get to have something that wasn't there before. Like the outcome that you produce with producing tracks, for instance, is just so different and so much more rewarding in a way. And I think that's maybe also where the happy tears come from, because it must have been inside of you for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then it felt like you could really let it out.
Express yourself and be your true self, it's because not everyone has this. I don't have I speak for myself, I can't really express myself very well, I think, like in social environments with other people, or I don't really feel like I have maybe the gift of word, or like feeling comfortable talking. Sometimes, I often like freeze up and like feel like, oh my God, I'm saying something really weird right now. But with the music, it's just like, you get to be yourself, and just tap into what's really inside of all of us. I think all of us can be creative, for sure. We all have it. It's not like
each on their own in a different way. Yeah. Let it be music, let it be painting, dancing, whatever comes to your mind.
Absolutely.
I think this is also the perfect moment right now to introduce another track of yours. I would love for you to introduce it to this podcast if you want to.
Yes, the next track that we're going to be listening to is called Lohek, which is actually a tribute to the Viking names. And it's also released on Ein2, and I hope you enjoy it.
about this track is also that it was picked out for Pure FM, which is Nora and Pure's podcast. So yeah, congratulations on this one. Again, I really, really love this track. Is there anything else you want to share about it?
It was a very happy period when I was writing it, and I think that you can kind of hear that in the track.
Absolutely.
I'm in a good place when I wrote this one, even though it doesn't mean that music you have to be in a good place to make good music. But for this one, I think it worked pretty well. I think it was even during the summer, so it was very much like these summer vibes in there.
Maybe speaking about summer, you moved to a place where I feel it's always summer there. It's not, but it always is in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. If you compare it to here, it's always summer there.
Do you want to maybe
Barcelona.
share why you moved there? And
absolutely. Yeah. It was then going back to this DJ competition. After that, I was like in a choosing moment which country. I wanted to leave Sweden. I was in Stockholm at this moment in time, and I wanted to go somewhere. I wanted to continue on my DJ career, but I didn't know where to go. And then I was like, okay, so it's either Ibiza or Barcelona, I was thinking as well, or Berlin. Berlin was already on there. But then I thought, okay, Berlin is not summery enough. It was actually the heat I was after.
Yeah.
And then I thought Ibiza, okay, well that's it's very much like season focused. So it's more like the clubs are very happening during the summer. So then I thought, okay, Barcelona is a good in between. So I moved
just like that on your own.
Just like that on my own, yes. But it's almost a bit too easy for me to move. I've done it a few times already before. I was traveling a lot in my work as well. I lived in like London. I lived in Bolivia. I lived in Copenhagen. Was in Tokyo for a while.
Wow.
I was happy enough to find some mutual friends there, so it was very easy to get into the community there as well. My roommate was also DJ.
Perfect circumstances, yeah.
So that helped a lot. And during that time as well, I mean, I was DJing and also producing.
Were you ghost producing then, or did you release your own tracks?
I hadn't released anything yet, no.
You were just producing.
I was still a bedroom producer, let's put it that way. So I was still trying to find my sound. I did not dare to reach out with my productions, no way, because I always felt like, I don't know, there's something missing. I'm not feeling it, you know. Then I went to Amsterdam for ADE, the conference. Yeah, after 5 years, I think it was exactly, or like 4.5 years after I moved to Barcelona. And through some mutual contacts, I got to meet Robosonic. We were backstage at a Defected party. And I was a big fan of his music.
Oh, I feel you. He is my favorite, yes. Wow.
It's very much because back then, or still is, this influence from the golden era hip hop. I mean, I grew up with that as well.
Yeah.
It still is. He still makes really.
He was a guest of mine also in the podcast, and we talk about the golden era, and very, very inspiring.
Yeah, no, he's a great producer. So I wanted to tell him that. And ended up talking to him quite a lot about his music and so forth. And then we moved over to this, okay, so I live in Barcelona. I'm thinking about maybe going to Berlin now.
Yeah. And he was like, you have to do it.
Do it. Yes, yeah, exactly. So when I got back to Barcelona, because I told him as well that I had like another background in tech, you know, so I kind of offered to say that I could help him out a bit with this label. So we had an interview or a call over Skype, and I mean, he just said, "Come over here and let's see what we can do with it."
So cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool, and it definitely made the decision. Okay, well, let's do it then. You know,
wow,
nothing to lose. So yeah, I think from Barcelona to Berlin. It took me in 10 days. I had
Really?
booked my flight and just moved over.
And just moved.
Yeah.
You found an apartment back in the day?
I was
Because that's an issue right now.
Exactly, absolutely. I was renting a room from a friend. So I came over here first, and before I decided, I came over here to Berlin and met some people, and I don't know, I think the universe was just like, yes, move to Berlin. So they just presented me with
the stars were aligned.
Yeah, exactly.
To welcome
it was time, and I listened and I followed. So then, of course, I mean, I had still all of my furniture. I don't know, but I managed to find someone to take over my flat and to actually help me to sell all my furniture as well. It was
sometimes things are meant to be, and then it just works out. Yeah. Wow, good for you. Yeah. When was that roundabout?
Yeah, so now it's 5 years.
5 years ago.
Exactly. So now I've been here in Berlin for 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah. That's kind of like my time frame. I did the same thing. I studied in London for 5 years. I see a pattern.
But that means you're leaving soon.
No, exactly. No, I don't want to do the same thing again, because I'm starting to see patterns in myself. And no, I'm very much enjoying staying here in Berlin. And so, yeah. I will stay here much longer.
Now is the perfect moment also to introduce another track of yours that is still unreleased. Do you know yet when and where it's going to be released? Can you share?
No, I don't really have any exact release date. I think we will just keep that as a mystery so far.
Okay, sounds good. Then let us have a listen to Unwind Lines by Robine that is going to be released very soon. Basically, you moved to Berlin about 5 years ago.
Yes.
Because you had a very inspiring and interesting conversation at the ADE.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. Yeah. So that is so amazing. So you were basically working for Robosonic. That's how it started.
I was helping him out in the background in an exchange for getting some knowledge from him, to extract some knowledge from him, let's say, put it that way.
That's a good trade.
Yeah, exactly. I thought so too.
Yeah.
So yeah, first time I played Sisyphos was back to back with him in Wintergarten. It was a really, really cool 4-hour set. Yeah, so
I think that's also how I found out about you, through him. And I mean, from moving to Berlin, this is really where it kicked off for you, also DJ wise. No, I mean, you played big festivals, clubs, everywhere. Are you a resident somewhere?
I play like every 3 months in most of the clubs here in Berlin. I would say.
Like normally,
Kater Blau
Kater,
and Ritter Butzke and Sisyphos as well. Sometimes I used to be a resident with Robosonic when we did these aus der Reihe tanzen
and Ritter Butzke.
Ritter Butzke. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a club on your wish list still in Berlin?
Club for my wish list is unfortunately closed now.
Which one?
That was Rummelsbucht.
Yeah. That's a pity.
Yes, and that was basically where my music kind of changed, which was actually still with Robosonic's help, because he was when I moved to Berlin, his first gig was there. my first gig as a resident living in Berlin, he was playing Rummelsbucht. And I was like, oh my God, I love this club. And then since then, I just started going there all the time and was very inspired by the sound. So that's kind of how I also made the changeover, because my own sound and together with Robosonic was definitely more housey and tech housey. And then I don't know, I got swept away by all these.
I was gonna say it's a bit different than house and tech house what you do now.
Yes. Yeah,
we got
absolutely.
a sneak peek of it just with the last track, and also the next and final track that we're going to introduce for this podcast is also very, very different, especially to Robosonic sound.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that it's something that happens to everyone. You develop, you get new ideas, new inspiration. And for me, it was always, of course, like very important that I could play my own tracks in my sets. And I've always felt like, okay, I can get them in, but they don't really go with the flow. As much as my new productions are going, I try them out. I played at Kit Kat this weekend, and got really nice feedback, and I could feel that it works so much better with the other tracks that I'm playing at the moment. So yes, I have...
You're going through a change.
I'm going through a change, and I have some friends that are still like, oh, I remember you back in the days where you were playing like more house, your tech house, please, can you come back?
Really?
Yes.
So they miss the old you.
Yes. So yeah, of course, I love music, so I love playing that music as well. But apparently producing, it doesn't come naturally to make that music for me.
Maybe that's a great opportunity now to introduce the final track of this podcast already. It's called Mellow Grid, and it's going to be released still this year, though.
Yes,
at some
exactly.
point. And also here introducing Robine's completely new style, a bit more aggressive, a bit harder.
Gritty and dirty.
Here we go.
I definitely think that it's such a great idea that we here in Berlin celebrate Women's Day so much as it's actually being done. I don't think I've seen it on this kind of level anywhere else. And if we're just looking at my Instagram, where I have like my friends all over the world, it's not as much as here in Berlin. So I'm very much enjoying it, and there are lots of great, talented artists here in Berlin and all over Germany, really. In an environment that is definitely more focused on the guys or the men. Fair enough, I come from a IT background, so there are more boys clubs everywhere, tech is also very, very manly.
Absolutely, yeah. And also producing women. There's very few women in the music industry that produce themselves.
Which I think is sad, but I guess that it has to do with the fact that you kind of have to be a bit of a nerd in order to produce nowadays. Yeah, you have to have kind of an interest in computers, I think, which I've always, because I am a programmer, and I think that I've always said that it has a kind of like a bad reputation. It's a lot about this logical thinking that we are actually really, really good at.
Is there anything you can recommend to them that you would say, or maybe you would also recommend to your old self if you had the chance to talk to you?
Find someone that actually knows how to do it and to kind of give you a push. I know that I had last week, I had a friend of mine. She came over to the studio. She has a background as she's an IT programmer, but she wanted to learn about how to produce music. So I took her into the studio and showed her around Ableton. And I was thinking about it. Wow, I would have loved to have someone show me, like, just you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And of course nowadays there's so much like YouTube and you can find so much things out there, but still, like, okay,
it's different if somebody
just focus on this. You can do 1,000 things, but you just need to have 5 good things and just focus on these ones, and I'm telling you which ones, and start with these sample packs, I don't know, or like I'm very much for like using Ableton's macros, for example, and like building your own kind of little instrument racks, big like ocean of samples. Where do I start?
Exactly. Yeah, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. So instead of making it this big thing, like, get someone to at least show you how to get a kick and a good rhythm to go. I mean, you can get a really long way with that, and then just let the inspiration just
flow.
Yeah. Even though for myself, I know that I'm a very introvert person, and I don't really reach out as much to the community as I could have, and finding like-minded colleagues or friends makes a big difference, where you can like share knowledge and like experiences.
So to all the women out there who want to produce, reach out to Robine.
Yeah. I'll give you some hints. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For sure. I love sharing, and I love to see other female or male artists thrive as well, and find their own like inner creativity and inner talent.
Beautiful. Yeah. There's only one more thing to do in this podcast, and usually what I do with all my guests, I play a little game with them, and it's called Heaven or Hell. And it means basically what we do now, I will ask you questions and you can only choose between one or the other, and you have to do it quick. Would you be open to play this game?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
Himmel oder Hölle?
Vinyl or digital?
Oh, yes. I would have to say digital.
Would you rather have the ability to see 10 minutes into the future or 150 years into the future?
10 minutes, I would say.
Kit Kat or Sisyphos?
Sisyphos.
Stockholm or Berlin?
Berlin.
Would you rather find true love today or win the lottery next year?
True love. And I have it already.
And you have it, so you can pick the lottery.
Yeah, I know. Good too.
Would you rather listen to your least favorite song on a loop for a year, or never listen to any music at all?
Listen to the worst one. I could not live without music.
Even if you hate it? Yeah.
It's still something in my ears, yes. Yeah.
Would you rather have Celine Dion or Eminem perform the soundtrack of your life?
Oh, can we have them remix it together, duo?
With who?
I mean, and I'm not... Eminem.
And last but not least question for today. Would you rather be able to erase your own memories or be able to erase someone else's memories?
I would say my own memories, unfortunately.
Really?
Some, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Some things I would like to erase, yeah.
Yeah. Well, some people are like, everything happens for a reason too. And everything is meant to show you something or help you learn. Would you agree?
Absolutely, but I also think that the brain has a tendency to remember the bad stuff. I think that for sure I am the person I am today because of my memories. Yeah. I'm very much into learning about neurons and how the brain is set up, and that you can actually reprogram your brain.
Rewire, yes.
Rewire, exactly.
Yes.
So that's very interesting.
Well, yeah, this is actually the end of this podcast already.
It went so fast.
It went by super quick. Thank you so much for taking the time once again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. I wish you all the luck and all the success on future productions and also in your gigs, playing festivals, playing clubs. And yeah, all the best. Happy Women's Day.
Thank you. Happy Women's Day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.